The first seizure was brought on when he was about 15 months old, and it was a heartbreaking experience. And from that moment on, I just became set on educating myself about epilepsy, looking at all of the treatment options, meeting with multiple doctors, and really just diving into this journey that was set before us. Well, the first seizure was brought on due to illness, and I had never experienced seizures before. I had never seen anyone have a seizure before. And my husband was home with me that evening, and he knew exactly what was happening. He knew exactly what to do. So we remained calm through the seizure. We called the ambulance. We were transported to the hospital where they did a lot of testing. Initially, they just thought it was a febrile seizure. And it was that path that got us really started. And he had another seizure shortly after that. Hospital stays became more frequent. And then doctors started to say, well, let's try to do some more testing and see if there's anything else we can find out. Sure enough, I would say about 6 months later, we got the diagnosis that he had a rare genetic condition called Angelman syndrome, which not all children with Angelman syndrome have epilepsy, but the majority of them do. Over 80% of children with Angelman syndrome do develop epilepsy, and it's very difficult to control. So that was how it all began. He had a multiple variety of seizure types. He had non-convulsive status epilepticus. He had oh my goodness, so many different seizure types that landed us in the hospital for long stays. I can recall that one long stay in the hospital, we almost didn't make it home for Christmas to be with our older son. And so that was a really stressful time, really hard time for our family. And he was already taking multiple medications. Multiple medications had failed. And one day in the hospital, I think they put him on a lot of Ativan. And so he was just laying in the hospital bed, just unconscious. And I asked the doctor, what are our options here? What can be done? Because we've tried multiple medications. I think at the time we were on 4 medications. And I said, where do you think we go from here? And at the time, I didn't really know much about diet therapy. And I had just heard whispers about it, that it might be a viable option. And so I just asked the neurologist and what he thought, since, we're in the hospital, he's having cluster seizures, one inside of every hour. And he said, well, we'll take a look at other medications. And that just didn't sit well with me. And I said, well, what about I heard about diet therapy. What do you think about diet therapy? I don't really know much about it. And he said, oh no. He would have to be having more than 100 seizures a day for us to explore diet therapy. And in that moment, my gut said to me, this was not right. I don't know what the right answer is in this moment. I don't have the education, but I know that answer was not right for Nathan. I just looked at my son in the bed, just unconscious, and I thought, what is the difference of the quality of his life if he's just laying here in the bed? He would be laying here in the bed if he was having 100 seizures a day. So at this point where we are, why can't we explore other options? So I just thought, I don't know what the right answer is. I know that answer was not the right answer. So if he wasn't going to allow us to explore diet therapy, I knew I had to find somebody who would. And he would have constipation and skin issues and irritability. And it was just horrific. It truly, truly was just absolutely horrific. I didn't feel like I got answers when I went to see the doctors. I just felt like they were chasing the dose. You know, if there was a breakthrough seizure, oh, well, let's just up the medication. Our neurologists, you know, they're so busy. And I remember numerous times calling the office because not everything is, you know, emergency that needs to go to the hospital and things like that. And so I remember on many occasions calling the office, seeking support, trying to send in videos of the new seizures types that I was seeing from my son and not getting a call back for days and just calling and expressing my frustration with the staff only to be told, well, the doctor's very busy. So basically, I'm just a number in line. And that didn't sit well with me at all. Everything felt like they were just throwing spaghetti at the wall and just trying to see what stuck, but they didn't really understand why he was having seizures or making sure that the type of seizure he was having was being medicated by the right medication that showed efficacy for that specific seizure type. And when we started diet therapy and I noticed an improvement in his eating, he started feeling alive, just looking alive. He started coming back and improving. We started gluten dairy free, and that journey, just that alone, stopped his cluster seizures. He used to have like 4 cluster seizures inside of every hour, and that was a day on a daily basis. And just removing those 2 things stopped his cluster seizures. Not overnight, but it took a little time and consistency. But that was the confirmation that I needed that diet therapy worked and how important it is to know what we're feeding our children has an effect on their overall health.